How we doing, Ellen?
Good.
Okay? Okay, I
And
think,
maybe at 10 of, we could do questions and answers.
absolutely, absolutely. I think we're right on track. I think we're gonna be fine. May finish early.
Good.
You good? Okay. Also, high fructose corn syrup. Let's look at a few foods. You know, this is what? Yoplait yogurt, right? It's gluten-free. Okay, well, that's cool. But number 2 ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. So we got to kind of look at this stuff. Ketchup. You wonder why kids like ketchup?
Sugar.
1/3 of the bottle of ketchup is essentially sugar. But it's got lycopene. Yeah, it's got 3 milligrams per serving of lycopene. Okay, but the number 3 ingredient right after red ripe tomatoes and distilled vinegar is high fructose corn syrup. Then corn syrup. Why would they do that? Because it lowers it on the ingredient list. It doesn't look like there's as much in there. It's another deceptive practice of big food. Not my Raisin Bran, please. Well, you got whole wheat, you got raisins, wheat bran, sugar, and high fructose corn syrup. Sugar and high fructose corn syrup, huh, interesting. Nutrigrain, that sounds healthy, doesn't it? Well, we got apple filling, and then we've got high fructose corn syrup, then sugar down here. So you got to kind of be on the lookout in a big way. How many of you guys know somebody who starts the day with a Nutrigrain bar every day? You know, if you do, chances are, if it's 7 a.m. in the morning, chances are 9 o'clock in the morning you're going to be hungry. Because your blood sugar is going to spike and then it's going to drop. Has anybody ever experienced that besides me? We don't have to talk a whole lot about soda anymore. But the Department of Health, New York City, Department of Health in New York, sponsored this ad, don't drink yourself fat. We're consuming about 20% of our calories in liquid form. If our objective is to build a lean, healthy, disease-resistant body, good, clean, simple, pure water has to be the primary beverage. And when I hear a patient or a nutrition client come in and say, I really don't like the taste of water,
Yes.
do you think I'm easy on them? Not really. It's a function of what their taste buds are used to. We were designed to drink water. 1 sugary beverage a day results in approximately 60% increase in obesity, according again to Dr. Willett from Harvard. This is what we're doing. And it's happening earlier. Good, clean, simple, pure water. So what about diet soda, right? I mean, it says, think young, drink young, right? Truth in advertising? Well, according to one of the senior investigators for one of the longest running heart studies going, Framingham Heart Study, he said, we found that 1 or more sodas per day increases your risk of new onset metabolic syndrome by about 45%. Didn't seem to matter if it was regular or diet. Okay, we're marketed at 0 calories, but the problem is, hormonally, the artificial sweeteners trigger the insulin level goes up, blood sugar goes down, we're hungrier. We're thriving or we're struggling at a cellular level. So more hormonally clogging foods. These are all 200-calorie examples. This is a glazed do-not. with a bite out of it, right? So it must have been like 220 calories or something. But that stimulates insulin, right? That clogs the sink, right? Blueberry muffin, half a blueberry muffin, I think. Half a McDonald's cheeseburger. I don't know if it's McDonald's, just, you get the point. And of course you gotta have the fries to go with it. That's another couple hundred. And the Doritos, you know, I used to sit down as a kid, back when I could eat anything I wanted. Anybody ever been there? And I used to eat a bag of Doritos. And if it wasn't a Mountain Dew, it was a Coke, you know? So if I, you know, I stand up here, I'm struggling with these things too. I just want you to know. And I've learned from my own experiences with all of this. And I've been there. What is that? Snickers.
I have no idea.
Candy bar of some sort. Never seen one of those. Okay, that's the clogged sink, right? Remember the clogged sink? That's the clogged sink. kind of get the point, right? Is that a great analogy or what?
Yes, it is.
It's a good analogy. Okay, so let's see, what are hormonally unclogging foods that are also all 200 calorie examples? So by the way, if you ever hear somebody, your doc or somebody else tell you that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie, not so. You think about that candy bar, you think about that glazed donut, that's 200 calories. You think there's any nutritional value in this as opposed to the glazed donut? Right? Vitamins, minerals, things that we haven't even identified. So that's half a melon. There's an apple. You know what I find that I see over and over again is that in the practice, we're all blowing and going, right? We're all on the treadmill. So we got to slow down. We're looking for the quick and the convenient. So we're going to the long shelf life foods, things that you can pull off the counter. Caution. We got to slow down enough to cut an apple off and eat an apple. We got to slow down enough to shop and buy these perishable items. Do you think there's any more nutritional value here than there was in that Snickers bar? Mm-hmm. That's why a calorie is not a calorie. Okay? Has anybody ever sat down and eaten this much broccoli at one sitting? Yes? You win the prize. That's great. That's great. Carrots, right? Plate of carrots. How about celery? 200. You ever do that? I knew we'd get you eventually, right? But that's pretty good. Again, this is where we're going. This is what we recommend in the practice. And here's our unclogged sink. Not real complicated. So, how's our time? We're good, right?
Good.
I've got 2 more sections. One is what's going on with modern day wheat, which is going to take me about 5 minutes. And then one is a case study. If we have time, we'll do the case study as well. Okay? We're good? Has anybody seen this book? Wheat Belly? There's another one out by the same author. It's called Wheat Belly Total Health. It's written by William Davis. I put it in your notes. You can Google it or YouTube it. Look at some of his YouTube videos. They're really fascinating. Dr. Davis is a cardiologist out of Milwaukee, and about 2.5 years ago, this book hit the New York Times bestseller list. And basically, his message is today's wheat is not the wheat of the 50s. Anybody know this? What happened was, in the 60s, there was a geneticist by the name of Norman Borlaug. And in fact, what he did is he took a 4 to 5 foot tall amber wave of grain plant that I grew up with, and he essentially made it an 18-inch tall, high-yield dwarf wheat plant. Okay? Now, why in the world would he do that? Well, you know what? They did it altruistically. They did it to impact world hunger. Okay? And he did in a big way, because what he did is he increased the yield. This high-yield dwarf wheat puts out a whole lot more wheat berries. Okay? So instead of getting 8 to 10 bushels, like we used to get with the 4 to 5 foot tall plant, that, by the way, would bend and break in a storm or a wind or whatnot, now, instead of 8 to 10 bushels, now we're getting 100 to 120 bushels per acre. It looks the same, it tastes the same, it smells the same, but chromosomally it's utterly different. And it's ubiquitous in our diet. It's crackers, pretzels, pasta, bagels, muffins, pizza. Anybody eat any of these foods? We eat lots and lots of these foods. Anybody have any teens in their life? Do they eat anything else besides this stuff? Not a lot, okay? Here's a picture of the hybridized grain. And by the way, this work was so profoundly impactful that in 1972, you can Google this, they gave Norman Borlaug a Nobel Peace Prize for this work because they thought he single-handedly solved world hunger. Pretty powerful stuff. The problem is this drives a process in the body called glycation or glycosylation. Now we're getting to the pain part and the diet. Glycation or glycosylation is a normal, natural aging process that we all go through. Okay? But what happens is, if you know any type 2 diabetics or a diabetic can live a good, long, healthy, full life, providing they keep their blood sugar in a certain range, okay? If they don't, and the problem with diabetes is it's silent, and some people don't really want to change what they're doing, and so their blood sugars run a little higher for too long, and over time it does a lot of destruction. And if you've ever heard the term, if you know a diabetic and you've heard the term a hemoglobin A1C, an HbA1c is a blood test to determine where your blood sugar level's been over the last 60 days or so. An HbA1c measures glycosylated hemoglobin. Now here's a visual for you. If you think of a bloodstream and you think of a red blood cell coming down the bloodstream, that when the blood sugar's elevated, because we've been living in the center aisles and eating the clogging foods, that red blood cell gets glazed like that glazed donut. Okay, is that good? It's not bad, right? Not bad. Well, it gets glazed. The problem is it affects the body systemically, okay? And what we're realizing now is that if I have a high glycemic, a high sugar, or things that turn to sugar quickly, lunch, I get a spike of this glycation for 2-3 hours, okay? And in the eyes, this glycation goes after various proteins in the body. In the lenses of the eyes, it will produce an earlier onset of cataracts. In the hips and in the knees, it goes after cartilage. So it will attack cartilage. In the short run, the hips and knees ache. In the long run, they degenerate. They accelerate the degenerative process. Again, normal aging, accelerated. And that diabetic that doesn't control the blood sugar, on average, they'll live 10 or 15 years less with complications because of this very process. In the skin, what do you think glycation does in the skin? That's what glycation will do in the skin. Okay? It affects the tiny little capillary beds that supply the dermis and will wrinkle up prematurely. In the heart, it produces heart disease, and so on throughout the body. It accelerates the aging process. So how do we avoid that? We keep our blood sugar level down. Well, how do we do that? We stay in the single ingredient whole foods. We get back to those foods, the vegetables, the fruits, whatnot, the better foods, and we try to stay away from the center aisles the best we can. Now, is anybody perfect? No. The last guy that was born perfect, we know what they did to him, right? Perfect.